the day the Thai king walked among his people. Chapter 1. The Man Without a Crown. Before I came to Thailand, I believed a king lived far above ordinary people, not only in a palace, but in distance, in silence, in gold rooms where soft footsteps disappeared into marble halls. I imagined that kings were surrounded by gates, soldiers, ceremonies, and words so formal that common people could never speak freely in their presence. And perhaps that was why, on my first quiet evening beside a river in old Siam, I could not understand the story an old Thai man told me. He said there was once a day when a Thai king walked among his people without a crown. No grand music, no royal procession, no shining umbrella above his head. Only a simple boat, a plain shirt, a gentle curiosity, and the soft mud of a village path beneath his feet. At first, I thought the old man was speaking in metaphor, but he smiled and said, "No, sometimes to understand a country, even a king must listen like a traveler." The rain had just stopped. The river beside us moved slowly in the dark, carrying bits of moonlight between the floating leaves. Somewhere across the water, a dog barked once, then fell silent. A lantern swung gently outside a wooden house, its light trembling in the humid air. I was an English writer then, newly arrived in Thailand, carrying too many opinions and too little understanding. I had come searching for stories, but I did not yet know that Thailand rarely gives its stories all at once. It gives them slowly, like tea cooling in a small cup, like incense smoke rising in a temple courtyard, like an old man beginning a sentence only after listening to the night. He pointed toward the Black River. Long ago, he said, the king wanted to know how people truly lived, not what officials reported, not what ceremonies showed, real life. I listened. The cicadas hummed in the trees. A small boat passed in the darkness, its engine low and sleepy. The old man continued. So he traveled quietly, sometimes by boat, sometimes through markets, sometimes to temples. He spoke with villagers, ate simple food, asked simple questions. I looked at him, and they did not know. Sometimes they did not, he said. Sometimes they guessed. Thai people notice more than they say. He laughed softly. That was the first thing Thailand taught me that night. Silence did not always mean ignorance. A smile did not always mean innocence. And respect did not always mean distance. The next morning, I followed the river north. The sky was pale blue, washed clean by rain. Wooden houses leaned over the water, their reflections broken by passing boats. The smell of grilled bananas drifted from a small stall near the pier. A woman stirred rice porridge in a metal pot while a child in a school uniform tied one shoe and forgot the other. Everything moved slowly, not lazily, but with rhythm. The rhythm of people who knew the morning well. I boarded a narrow wooden boat with peeling green paint. The boatman was an elderly man with sun-darkened skin and bright, careful eyes. "Where you go?" he asked. "To understand a story," I said. He looked at me for a moment, then nodded as if that was a perfectly normal destination. "Then river is good," he said. "River remembers." We moved away from the pier. The water slapped softly against the boat. The city behind us began to loosen into smaller houses, quieter banks, coconut trees, temple roofs, and little wooden docks where women rinsed bowls in the brown water. I imagined the king from the old story traveling like this, not as a figure in a portrait, but as a man beneath the same sun, listening to the same boat engine, smelling the same wet wood, watching ordinary people begin their day. At a small riverside market, the boatman stopped. "Here," he said. Old feeling. I stepped onto the pier. The market was waking. A woman laid banana leaves across a table. An old man arranged fish in a silver basin. A monk walked barefoot with his alms bowl, and people lowered their heads as they offered rice. No one hurried. The whole place felt like a soft conversation between mourning and memory. I stopped at a small stall where a woman was grilling sticky rice wrapped in banana leaves. She smiled. "You want one?" "Yes, please." Her English was simple, and my Thai was almost nothing. But kindness filled the spaces between us. I asked her, carefully, "Do people here know the story of the king who came without ceremony?" She paused, then her face changed. Not dramatically, only softly, as if I had mentioned someone beloved in a quiet room. "My grandmother told me," she said. "King Rama V. He wanted to see people by himself." "Why?" I asked. She turned the rice over the charcoal. "Because if people know king is coming, everything becomes beautiful." She looked up at me, but real life is not always beautiful. The charcoal cracked softly. Smoke curled into the morning air. She handed me the warm packet of sticky rice. Maybe he wanted to see real life. I carried those words with me all day. Real life, not the life prepared for visitors, not the life polished for important eyes, but the life that wakes early, counts coins, washes dishes, repairs boats, feeds children, bows to monks, and laughs over simple food. By afternoon, clouds gathered again. I walked along a narrow village path, past banana trees and small spirit houses wrapped in faded cloth. Chickens moved lazily beneath wooden homes. The air smelled of wet earth, jasmine, and smoke from cooking fires. At a temple near the river, I found shade beneath a large tree. A monk swept fallen leaves from the courtyard. The broom made a soft scratching sound against a stone. I asked him about the story. He listened without interrupting. Then he said, "A king in a palace hears many voices, but many voices are filtered before they arrive." He swept another line of leaves. "When he walks among people, the voice is closer." I sat quietly. The temple bell rang once, a low, golden sound. The monk smiled. In Thai culture, leadership is not only power, it is burden, it is listening, it is seeing suffering before people must shout. Those words stayed with me, because before Thailand, I had imagined kingship only as distance. But here, in this story, the distance became smaller. A king stepped out of ceremony. A villager spoke without perfect words. A market became a classroom. A river became a road. And listening became a form of service. That evening, rain returned. It fell gently at first, tapping on banana leaves and temple roofs. I sat under a wooden shelter near the pier while the market closed around me. Vendors folded cloth. Boats rocked in the dark water. Somewhere, someone was frying garlic, and the smell drifted through the rain like a memory. The boatman from the morning sat beside me. He opened a small metal lunchbox and offered me a piece of fruit. "Farang like Thai story?" he asked. "Yes," I said, "but I think I am only beginning to understand." He nodded. "That is good. Thailand is not fast story." We watched the rain. Then he said, "You know why people remember that king? Because he ruled?" The boatman shook his head. "Because he came close." The answer was so simple that I did not reply. Across the river, lights appeared one by one in wooden houses. Small lights, human lights, the kind no palace could replace. That night, in my guest house, I opened my notebook and wrote. I thought royalty meant being above people. But in Thailand, I found a story where greatness came from coming nearer. I put down my pen. Outside, rain softened the old town. A gecko clicked from somewhere near the ceiling. The river moved beyond the window, dark and patient. And before sleep reached me, I imagined a quiet boat moving through the mist of another century. Inside it sat a man without a crown, not hiding from his people, but searching for them. And somewhere ahead, in a small village lit by lanterns, someone was cooking rice, someone was telling a joke, someone was waiting without knowing that history was about to step softly onto the riverbank. Chapter 2. A journey hidden in plain sight. That night, rain whispered against the roof of my guest house. Not loudly, not urgently, just enough to blur the edges of the world. I lay awake for a while listening to it. The river moved somewhere beyond the darkness. A gecko clicked once from the wall. A distant boat engine hummed and faded away. And before sleep finally arrived, I found myself thinking about the king from the story. Not the king in paintings, not the king in ceremonies, but the man in the small boat, the man who chose curiosity over comfort, the man who wanted to see what existed beyond official reports and polished greetings. The next morning arrived, wrapped in mist. The river seemed wider than before. Clouds hung low above the water. Everything appeared softened. Even the voices from the market sounded quieter. I walked slowly toward the pier where the old boatman was already preparing his boat. He smiled when he saw me. "You still chasing King?" I laughed. "Maybe." He nodded. "Good. Story not finished." No, the story was only beginning. We pushed away from the dock. The boat drifted into the pale morning. The river stretched ahead like a road made of silver silk. On both sides stood wooden houses balanced above the water. Children waved from small docks. Women washed vegetables in metal bowls. An old man repaired a fishing net while humming softly to himself. The boatman steered with one hand. "People think history is big events," he said. "Wars? Yes. Kings? Yes. Battles? Yes." He smiled. "But most history is ordinary people." I looked toward the shoreline. A woman hanging laundry. A fisherman untangling rope. A boy feeding ducks. The boatman continued. "When King traveled, he saw all these things." The river curved gently. A temple appeared ahead. Its golden roof glowed beneath the cloudy sky. Monks in saffron robes moved quietly across the courtyard. The entire scene felt timeless, almost unchanged, as though centuries had folded together. I wondered how many mornings the river had witnessed. How many kings, how many villagers, how many stories. Thailand, I was beginning to realize, did not separate history from everyday life. History lived beside the river. It sat in markets. It floated in boats. It lingered beneath temple bells. And nowhere was that more visible than in the story of King Chulalongkorn, the king many Thais lovingly call Rama V. A king remembered not only for reforms and modernization, but for listening, for traveling, for observing, for stepping beyond the palace walls. The boat eventually stopped near a riverside village. Unlike the market from yesterday, this place felt smaller, quieter, a handful of houses, a narrow dirt road, mango trees leaning over fences, a sleepy dog stretched beneath a cart. The air smelled of wet earth and charcoal smoke. Somewhere nearby, rice was steaming. The scent drifted through the morning air, warm, comforting, familiar even to a foreigner. I wandered slowly along the path. Birds called from the trees. A bicycle rolled past. An elderly woman watered flowers outside her home. She looked up and smiled. Thailand had surprised me with its smiles many times already. But now I was beginning to understand something deeper. Thai smiles were often invitations, not to speak, but to relax, to feel welcome, to lower the invisible walls people carry around themselves. The old woman pointed toward a wooden bench beneath a mango tree. I sat. She continued watering her plants. Neither of us spoke, yet somehow the silence felt friendly. In my own country, silence often felt awkward. Something to fill, something to escape. In Thailand, silence sometimes felt complete. After several minutes, she finally sat beside me. "You visitor?" "Yes." She nodded. "You like Thailand?" "Very much." Another nod. Then she asked a question I did not expect. "You understand Thailand?" I laughed. "No." She laughed too. "Good answer." We sat beneath the tree, watching chickens wander through the yard. Then she told me a story. Not a grand story. A family story. The kind that rarely appears in books. Her grandfather, she explained, had once spoken about the king's journeys. The villagers knew rumors. Sometimes a stranger arrived. A traveler. A man who asked many questions. A man who listened more than he spoke. A man who seemed unusually interested in irrigation canals, harvests, roads, schools, and village life. Only later did some people realize who he really was. The old woman smiled. My grandfather said the king looked at people when they talked. I thought about that. It sounded simple, yet somehow meaningful. Because truly listening is rare. Many people wait for their turn to speak. Few people listen to understand. The old woman pointed toward the river. He wanted to know if people had enough water. Then toward the road. He wanted to know if roads were good. Then toward the school at the far end of the village. He wanted children to learn. Her voice carried no political tone. No dramatic admiration. Only quiet respect. Like someone remembering a family member. And perhaps that was part of what fascinated me. In many countries, kings belong mainly to history books. In Thailand, stories about kings often felt woven into everyday memory. Not distant, not abstract, human. The afternoon sun slowly emerged from behind the clouds. The village brightened. Children ran across the road. A rooster announced something important to nobody in particular. A motorcycle buzzed past. Life continued exactly as it always had, and somehow that made the story feel more real. The king had not traveled through museums. He traveled through living communities, places where people cooked, worked, complained, laughed, dreamed, places where life unfolded without performance. I stayed in the village until late afternoon. Before leaving, I visited a small school near the river. The building was simple: wooden walls, open windows, ceiling fans turning lazily overhead. Children's drawings decorated the classroom. The teacher welcomed me inside. When I mentioned the story I was researching, she smiled immediately. Many Thai children learn about those journeys. Why? She thought for a moment, then answered carefully. Because leadership is not only giving instructions. She pointed toward the students. Good leaders learn first. Outside, a breeze stirred the trees. The leaves danced softly in the sunlight. The teacher continued, "When someone has power, it becomes easy to stop listening." I nodded. Maybe that is why people still remember. Her words followed me long after I left. As evening approached, I returned to the river. The water reflected gold and orange light from the setting sun. Boats moved slowly across the surface. The world seemed peaceful, unhurried, as if the river itself understood patience. The boatman was waiting near the pier. "You learned something today?" I climbed aboard. "Yes." He smiled. "What?" I thought carefully before answering. I thought kings were remembered because people saw them. The boat drifted away from shore. The river carried us gently downstream. "And now?" he asked. "Now I think they are remembered because they saw people." The boatman laughed softly. Very Thai answer. The sun disappeared behind the trees. Evening settled over the water. Lights began appearing in riverside homes, one by one, like stars descending to earth. For a long while, neither of us spoke. The boat cut quietly through the river. Somewhere, a temple bell echoed across the water, a long, low note floating through the darkness. Then the boatman finally broke the silence. "You know something interesting?" "What?" Some villagers recognized him. "The king?" "Yes." I looked at him, but they said nothing. The boatman nodded. Sometimes respect means protecting a secret. The river reflected moonlight now, silver ripples spreading behind us. People understood why he traveled. The boatman smiled, so they helped him continue. That idea stayed with me. A silent agreement between a king and his people, a shared understanding, a quiet trust. Perhaps that was why the story felt different from the royal stories I knew. It was not about distance. It was about connection. Not about being above others, but being among them. That night, I returned to my room. The air smelled faintly of rain again. I opened my notebook. On the first blank page, I wrote, "A crown can command attention, but listening earns memory." I stared at the sentence for a while, then I continued writing. Outside, the river moved through the darkness, patient, steady, unchanged. And somewhere in the pages of Thailand's past, a king continued his quiet journey, still traveling village roads, still stepping onto wooden piers, still asking simple questions, still listening. Yet the old boatman had revealed something important. Some villagers recognized him. They knew. And tomorrow, I would begin discovering what happened when ordinary people realized that the stranger standing beside them was not an ordinary traveler at all, not a merchant, not a teacher, not a fisherman, but the king himself. And that, the boatman promised, was where the story became unforgettable. Chapter 3. The Villagers Who Knew. The next morning began with fog, not the thick fog of mountains, not the cold fog of northern winters, but a soft river mist, the kind that seems to float just above the water, the kind that blurs the distance and quiets the world. I woke before sunrise. For several minutes, I sat by the window of my small guest house. The river was barely visible. Only faint outlines of boats drifted through the pale gray light. A rooster crowed somewhere beyond the trees. A temple bell answered from far away. The sound seemed to arrive from another century. Perhaps that was why I could not stop thinking about what the boatman had said the previous evening. Some villagers knew. They recognized the king, yet they remained silent. Why? That question followed me all the way to the pier. The boatman was already there, as always, waiting beside his weathered green boat. The river moved gently around him. "You look serious today," he said. "I keep thinking about something." "The villagers?" I nodded. They knew. Yes. Why didn't they tell everyone? The boatman smiled. Because sometimes helping someone means not exposing them. We pushed away from shore. The boat drifted quietly into the morning mist. For a while, neither of us spoke. The river seemed sleepy, peaceful. The world felt wrapped in cotton. Eventually, the boatman pointed ahead. There. A small village appeared through the fog. Wooden houses stood above the water on stilts. Smoke rose from cooking fires. The smell of rice drifted through the morning air. Everything looked simple. Everything looked ordinary. Yet, somewhere in places like this, the story had happened. The king had arrived. The villagers had noticed. And somehow they had protected the secret. When we reached the dock, I stepped onto the weathered wooden planks. The village was just beginning its day. Women swept leaves from their yards. Children prepared for school. Fishermen unloaded baskets from small boats. The sounds were gentle. Brooms brushing the ground. Water splashing against posts. Quiet conversation. The entire village seemed to move at a slower rhythm, as though no one wished to disturb the morning. I followed a narrow path lined with banana trees. The leaves glistened from last night's rain. A few chickens wandered across the road. An old wooden bridge crossed a narrow canal. There I met a man sitting beneath a tamarind tree. He appeared to be in his 70s, perhaps older. His hands were rough from work. His eyes were calm. When I greeted him, he smiled and motioned toward the empty bench beside him. I sat. For several minutes, we simply watched the canal. A small boat drifted past. Dragonflies hovered above the water. The old man finally spoke. "You are looking for stories." It was not a question. I smiled. "Yes," he nodded. "Good stories travel slowly." I had heard something similar before. Thailand seemed to enjoy teaching lessons through simple sentences. I told him about the king, about the villagers who recognized him. The old man listened quietly. Then he chuckled. "My grandfather told me about that." I leaned forward. "What did he say?" The old man looked toward the canal. He said, "Villagers often know more than outsiders think." The breeze stirred the tamarind leaves above us. My grandfather said when the king arrived, people noticed small things. Like what? The old man smiled. His manners. I waited. He listened carefully. Another pause. He remembered names. A bird landed on the bridge railing. The old man continued. He asked questions ordinary travelers never asked. What kind of questions? How much rice grows here? Do children have a teacher? Is the road flooded during rainy season? Does the canal provide enough water? I nodded. Those were not the questions of a tourist, not the questions of a merchant. They were questions asked by someone responsible, someone trying to understand. The old man continued. Villagers may not know immediately. He smiled. But eventually they suspect. Then what happened? The old man laughed softly. Nothing. Nothing? Yes. His answer surprised me. The old man noticed. You expect a dramatic story. Maybe. But most Thai stories are not dramatic. He pointed toward the village. People simply continued living. A woman carrying vegetables walked past. She greeted the old man. He returned the greeting. Then he looked back at me. The villagers understood why he came. So they protected him? Yes. Why? The old man thought for a moment, then answered. Because if everyone treated him like a king, he could no longer learn like a traveler. The simplicity of the answer caught me off guard. I looked toward the canal. The water reflected sunlight between patches of floating plants. Children laughed somewhere nearby. The village felt peaceful, ordinary. Yet suddenly I understood something important. The villagers were not helping a king hide. They were helping him listen. The distinction mattered a great deal. As the morning continued, I wandered deeper into the village. Near the center stood a small market. Nothing elaborate. A few wooden stalls, fresh vegetables, fish from the river, bananas hanging from bamboo poles. A woman sold sweets wrapped in banana leaves. The smell of coconut drifted through the air. I bought one and sat beneath a tree, watching, listening, and slowly I realized how much information flowed through ordinary conversations. People discussed weather, harvests, road conditions, family problems, school activities, medical needs, small things. Yet together they formed a picture of village life, a picture impossible to see from a palace. Perhaps that was exactly why the king traveled, not to inspect, not to impress, but to understand. Near noon, I found shelter beneath the roof of a small coffee stall. The owner was a cheerful woman who seemed to know everyone in the village. Within minutes, she had greeted dozens of people by name. I asked whether she had heard stories about the king's travels. Her face brightened. Of course. She poured tea into a glass. My grandmother loved those stories. What did she tell you? The woman laughed. She said, villagers sometimes pretended not to know. I smiled. Pretended? Yes. Even when they recognized him? The woman nodded. Then she leaned closer as though sharing a secret. Thai people can be very good at pretending not to notice things. We both laughed. Outside, bicycles rode past the stall. A dog slept in the shade. The woman continued. My grandmother said people respected what he was trying to do. What was that? Learn. The answer came instantly, without hesitation, as though it were obvious. Because perhaps it was. The woman stirred her tea. Learning is important in Thailand. She pointed toward the school. So is listening. Then toward the temple. So is humility. She smiled. And sometimes the king was teaching those things simply by traveling. The afternoon drifted by slowly. Clouds moved across the sky. The heat softened. A breeze arrived from the river. Everything felt calm, unhurried, almost sleepy. As evening approached, I returned to the dock. The boatman was waiting, again, as if he always knew where I would be. We climbed aboard and pushed away from shore. The village gradually faded behind us. The river widened. The setting sun painted the water gold. For a while, we sat quietly. Then I told him what I had learned. The villagers knew. The villagers helped. The villagers understood. The boatman listened, then nodded. Yes, it's different from what I expected. How? I thought carefully. In my country, if people discovered a king nearby, there would be excitement. The boatman laughed. There was excitement here too. Then why stay silent? He looked toward the horizon. Because sometimes the greatest respect is allowing someone to complete their purpose. The river glowed beneath the evening light. His words settled slowly into my thoughts. Allowing someone to complete their purpose. What a beautiful idea, and what a rare one. Many people rush to claim attention. Many people rush to announce what they know. But these villagers had chosen something different. They chose patience. They chose trust. They chose understanding. The boat drifted downstream. Night slowly approached. Lights appeared along the riverbanks. One house, then another, then another. Reflections shimmered across the water, like stars floating beneath the surface. The boatman finally spoke again. Tomorrow I tell you something else. What? He smiled. The king did not only listen. I waited. But first he learned how difficult life could be. The breeze cooled. The river darkened. What do you mean? The boatman looked toward the distant lights. When you live in a palace, some hardships remain invisible. The engine hummed softly. The water slipped past beneath us. But when you walk village roads, he paused. When you sleep in simple places. Another pause. When you speak directly with people, the boatman smiled. You begin seeing problems that reports cannot show. The village lights disappeared behind us. Darkness settled over the river. And suddenly I understood where the story was leading. The king's journey had never been about adventure. It had been about discovery. Not discovering Thailand, but discovering realities hidden behind official words. The realities of ordinary people. Their struggles, their hopes, their needs, their daily lives. That night, back at the guest house, I opened my notebook once more. The river moved quietly beyond the window. The air smelled faintly of jasmine. A gecko clicked somewhere in the darkness, and beneath the glow of a small lamp, I wrote. The villagers knew who he was, but they understood something more important than identity. They understood purpose. I closed the notebook. Outside, the river continued its endless journey through the night. Patient, steady, listening, much like the king himself. And tomorrow, I would discover what happened when those journeys revealed truths that could no longer be ignored. Truths hidden in muddy roads, flooded fields, small schools, remote villages. Truths that would eventually help shape the future of an entire nation. But for now, the river carried its secrets quietly beneath the moonlight. And somewhere in the darkness of old Siam, a king without a crown continued walking among his people. Chapter 4. What the River Revealed. That night, I dreamed of rivers. Not one river, many rivers. Wide rivers, narrow rivers. Rivers flowing through forests, villages, markets, temples, and rice fields. When I woke before dawn, the dream remained with me. Perhaps because, in Thailand, rivers are more than water. They are roads, memories, lifelines, teachers. For centuries, people lived beside them, traveled upon them, and depended on them. And during his journeys, the king followed many of those same waterways, not because they were convenient, but because they led directly into the heart of people's lives. The morning sky was pale silver. Thin clouds drifted across the horizon. The river outside my guest house looked calm enough to reflect every detail of the waking world. I walked to the pier. The old boatman was already there. Of course he was. At this point, I had begun to suspect he belonged to the river itself. He smiled as I approached. Ready? Yes. Today we talk about problems. That answer surprised me. Problems seemed like an unusual topic for such a peaceful morning. Yet the boatman climbed aboard and motioned for me to follow. The engine started. The boat slipped quietly into the current. Mist floated above the water. The world felt half awake. For several minutes we traveled in silence. Then the boatman pointed toward the shore. A small rice field stretched into the distance. Beyond it stood a cluster of homes. Simple wooden houses raised above the ground. Beautiful in their own way, yet clearly vulnerable to nature. Imagine, he said, rain comes for weeks. I nodded. Fields flood. The boat moved steadily forward. Road disappears. He pointed again. Village becomes difficult to reach. I looked at the landscape. Suddenly it became easier to imagine. The beauty remained, but so did the challenges. The boatman continued. Many years ago, some places were far from Bangkok. He smiled. Very far. Even if not far in distance? Yes. Because travel was difficult? He nodded. Exactly. The river widened. Sunlight slowly broke through the clouds. Golden reflections shimmered across the water. The boatman leaned back. When the king traveled, he saw things reports could not fully explain. I listened carefully. He saw schools with too few books. He saw roads that disappeared during floods. He saw villages needing better connections. He saw places where people worked very hard but still faced difficulties. The engine hummed softly. The river carried us onward. I imagined those journeys, not as grand expeditions, but as quiet observations. A king standing beside a muddy road. A king speaking with teachers. A king listening to farmers. A king watching boats struggle against currents. Small moments, yet powerful ones. The kind of moments that change understanding. By mid-morning, we arrived at a riverside village larger than the others. Children played near the docks. Fishermen repaired nets beneath trees. Women sold fruit beneath colorful umbrellas. The smell of grilled fish drifted through the air. Life moved comfortably, naturally, without hurry. I wandered through the village while the boatman remained near the pier. The road eventually led me to a small temple. Its white walls glowed beneath the morning sun. Monks moved quietly through the courtyard. Birds gathered in the trees above. The entire place felt peaceful. I sat beneath a large banyan tree. Nearby, an elderly monk was feeding fish in a pond. The fish surfaced in gentle ripples. The monk smiled when he noticed me. "You are traveling?" "Yes." "Learning?" "I hope so." The monk nodded. "A good reason to travel." I told him about the king's journeys. His expression softened. Many Thai people reacted that way whenever the story arose, not with excitement, but with warmth, as though remembering an old lesson. The monk sprinkled more food into the pond. Then he said something that stayed with me for the rest of the day. "Compassion requires proximity." I repeated the words silently. "Compassion requires proximity." The monk continued. "If you are too far away, you may care." The fish gathered near the surface, but you may not fully understand. He looked toward the village. To understand suffering, people must sometimes leave comfortable places. The breeze moved through the banyan leaves. The shadows shifted across the ground. The monk smiled. "That is true for kings." He paused. "It is true for everyone." For several moments, neither of us spoke. The fish returned beneath the water. The pond became still again. I realized the monk was describing something much larger than a historical journey. He was describing a human truth. People understand more when they come closer, closer to different lives, closer to different experiences, closer to realities they might otherwise never see. Perhaps that was why the story continued to resonate after more than a century. Not because a king traveled, but because he chose to learn directly. The afternoon sun climbed higher. The village became warmer. I wandered toward a small school near the temple. Children's voices drifted through open windows. Laughter mixed with the sound of ceiling fans. The teacher invited me inside. The classroom was simple: wooden desks, maps on the walls, handwritten lessons pinned above the blackboard. The students smiled shyly when they saw me. The teacher explained that the village school had changed greatly over the years. More books, better access, better transportation, more opportunities. Then she said something interesting. Many improvements begin when someone first notices a problem. I thought immediately about the king, about listening, about observation, about those quiet journeys. The teacher continued. Sometimes solutions start with a conversation. Outside, children ran across the playground. The sound of their laughter filled the air. The school felt alive, hopeful, and somehow connected to the story I had been following. Not directly, but through the idea that understanding leads to action, that listening leads to improvement, that proximity creates awareness. As afternoon faded into evening, I returned to the river. The boatman sat beneath a tree repairing a rope. He looked up and smiled. "You learned something." I laughed. "You always know." He shrugged. "River tells me." We boarded the boat once more. The river welcomed us back. The setting sun painted everything gold. The water seemed almost liquid light. For a while, we drifted without speaking. Then I told him about the monk, about compassion requiring proximity. The boatman nodded slowly. "Yes." He looked toward the horizon. "That is why people remember those journeys." The river reflected orange clouds. The sky deepened toward evening. Not because a king traveled. I waited, but because he wanted to understand. The words settled over the water. Simple, yet powerful. I watched the river flow beside us. A fisherman cast his net. Birds crossed the sky. The world moved peacefully around us. And I realized how much my understanding had changed. Before arriving in Thailand, I thought the story would be about royalty, about ceremony, about power. Instead, it had become a story about listening, about curiosity, about humility, about choosing to learn. The boatman smiled. Tomorrow is final part. I felt a strange sadness. The story had become a companion. What happens tomorrow? The boatman looked toward the fading sun. The journey ends. Then he paused. But the lesson remains. The river darkened as evening arrived. Lights appeared along the banks. Small homes glowed warmly against the gathering night. The reflections danced across the water. Beautiful, peaceful, timeless. The boat continued downstream, and for the first time, I understood that the most important discoveries are rarely dramatic. They arrive quietly, one conversation at a time, one village at a time, one act of listening at a time. That night, back in my room, I opened my notebook. The pages were beginning to fill, not just with facts, but with understanding. I wrote, The king traveled to see his people, but perhaps he also traveled to see his country more clearly. I placed the notebook beside the bed. Outside, the river moved beneath the moonlight. The same river that had carried merchants, monks, farmers, travelers, and kings. The same river that had witnessed countless stories. And tomorrow, the final chapter would reveal why those quiet journeys still live in the hearts of many Thai people today. Why a king without a crown became a memory that survived generations. Why villagers continue telling the story to their children. And why, more than a century later, a foreign traveler like me was still following the ripples left behind by a simple boat moving through the waters of old Siam. Chapter 5. The Legacy of a King Who Chose to Listen. The final morning arrived quietly. No dramatic sunrise, no sudden revelation. Only the gentle sounds that had accompanied me throughout my journey. The murmur of the river, the distant call of birds, the soft rustling of leaves in the breeze. I sat by the window of my guest house before dawn. The sky was still dark. Across the water, a few lanterns glowed from riverside homes. Some families were already awake, preparing food, beginning work, starting another ordinary day. The same kind of ordinary day that countless villagers had lived more than a century ago, and perhaps that was the most remarkable part of the story. History often feels distant, separated from us by dates and textbooks. But here in Thailand, history seemed to linger gently within everyday life. A temple bell still rang in the morning. Monks still walked quietly through villages. Boats still traveled the rivers. Markets still awakened before sunrise. And stories still passed from one generation to the next, especially stories that taught something important. I packed my notebook and walked to the pier. The old boatman was waiting. As always, his boat rocked gently against the wooden dock. The river shimmered beneath the first light of morning. When I climbed aboard, he smiled. Last day. I nodded. Last day. The engine started softly. The boat drifted into the current. For a while, we traveled in silence. Neither of us seemed eager to disturb the peaceful morning. Mist floated above the water. A fisherman stood motionless in his boat. Birds skimmed the river's surface. The entire world felt calm, as though inviting reflection. Eventually, the boatman spoke. You know what happened after those journeys? I looked toward him. Not exactly. He nodded. Most people remember the travel. The boat moved steadily forward. But the important part is what came afterward. The sun slowly emerged above the horizon. Golden light spread across the river. The boatman pointed toward a village school visible in the distance. Understanding became action. I listened carefully. Roads improved. Schools expanded. Communication became easier. Travel became faster. The river reflected the growing daylight. The country changed. His words were simple, yet they carried weight, because the story was no longer about one man traveling. It was about what happened when listening led to responsibility, when understanding led to improvement, when observation became service. The boat continued downstream. I thought about everything I had learned, the villagers who recognized him, the farmers who shared their concerns, the teachers who explained their challenges, the communities connected by rivers, the quiet conversations beneath trees and beside canals. Piece by piece, those experiences formed a clearer picture of the nation. Not the nation seen from a throne, but the nation experienced by ordinary people. Perhaps that was the real purpose of the journey, to replace assumptions with understanding. The boatman smiled. Same lesson for everyone. How? He pointed toward the shoreline. You thought you understood Thailand when you arrived. I laughed. That is true. And now, I looked at the river, at the villages, at the temples rising above the trees, at the fishermen preparing their nets, at the children riding bicycles along dirt roads, at the women opening market stalls, at the ordinary beauty surrounding us. Now I realized how little I had known. I understand more, I said. The boatman nodded. Good. The river curved gently. Ahead, a small market was beginning to wake. Vendors arranged fruit on wooden tables. The smell of grilled bananas drifted through the air. A monk walked quietly past. Life continued exactly as it always had, and somehow that felt important. The story of the king was not preserved because it belonged only to the past. It survived because its lesson remained relevant. People still need to listen. People still need to understand. People still need to come closer to one another. The boat eventually stopped near a riverside temple. I stepped onto the dock. The boatman remained seated. "I'll wait." I followed a path toward the temple. The morning air felt cool beneath the trees. Birds sang above me. Sunlight filtered through the leaves. Everything seemed peaceful. The temple grounds were nearly empty. Only one elderly monk sat beneath a large tree overlooking the river. I approached respectfully. He smiled. "Good morning." "Good morning." I sat nearby. For several minutes, we watched the river together. Then I asked him one final question. "Why do people still remember the story?" The monk was silent for a while, not because he lacked an answer, but because he seemed to be choosing the right one. Finally, he spoke. "Because people remember how someone makes them feel." The river moved gently below us. The monk continued. "They remember kindness. They remember respect. They remember being heard." A breeze stirred the branches above. The leaves whispered softly. The monk smiled. When people tell stories about a king walking among villagers, they are also telling a story about dignity. I listened carefully. "Dignity?" He nodded. He showed that every person's life was worth understanding. The words settled quietly into my thoughts. Every person's life was worth understanding. Perhaps that was why the story had endured. Not because it was unusual, not because it was dramatic, but because it reflected a value that people recognized immediately: the value of listening, the value of humility, the value of genuine curiosity. The monk looked toward the river. Sometimes people think leadership means speaking. A bird landed nearby. Sometimes leadership means listening. The simplicity of the statement made it even more powerful. We sat quietly afterward. Neither of us felt the need to add anything more. The river seemed to complete the conversation for us. Eventually, I thanked him and returned to the dock. The boatman was waiting. As always, we climbed aboard for the final journey. The river carried us slowly downstream. Morning became afternoon. Afternoon drifted toward evening. The sky softened into shades of gold and amber. Villages passed quietly along the banks. Temples reflected in the water. Children waved from wooden piers. The familiar scenes felt different now, not because they had changed, but because I had. The boatman finally spoke. "You know the biggest misunderstanding foreigners have?" I smiled. "There are many." He laughed. "Yes." The river sparkled beneath the setting sun. "But one of them is believing Thailand is easy to understand." I nodded. "That is true. People often arrived expecting beaches, street food, temples, smiles, and Thailand certainly had all of those things. But beneath them existed layers of history, traditions, values, ways of seeing the world. Stories passed quietly through generations. Stories like this one, a story that began with a king leaving his palace and ended with a nation remembering why. The sun touched the horizon. The sky glowed orange, then gold, then deep crimson. The boatman slowed the engine. For a moment, we simply drifted. The river was calm, perfectly calm. "Do you know what I think now?" I asked. The boatman smiled. "What?" I looked across the water, at the villages, at the trees, at the fading light, at the country that had taught me so much without ever raising its voice. I think the most important thing the king found was not information. The boatman waited. It was connection. He nodded slowly. Yes, the river carried us onward. The last light of day shimmered across the surface, and for a long moment, neither of us spoke. Words no longer felt necessary. When we finally reached the pier, darkness was beginning to settle. The journey was over. The story was complete. Or perhaps not complete, because good stories never truly end. They continue traveling from one person to another, from grandparents to grandchildren, from villagers to travelers, from the past into the future. That night, I returned to my room one final time. The river flowed quietly beyond the window. A gecko clicked somewhere in the darkness. The air smelled faintly of rain and jasmine. I opened my notebook. On the final page, I wrote, Before coming to Thailand, I believed a king became great by standing above people. Here, I discovered a different idea. Sometimes greatness comes from walking beside them. I closed the notebook. Outside, the river continued its endless journey beneath the stars. Patient, steady, listening, much like the king whose story had carried me through these peaceful days. And as sleep slowly approached, I understood why Thailand had preserved this memory for generations. Not because it was a story about royalty, but because it was a story about humanity, a story about curiosity, a story about humility, a story about listening, and perhaps, most importantly, a story reminding us that no matter who we are, understanding begins the same way. By taking a step closer, by asking a question, and by listening to the answer, good night. Thailand still holds countless stories waiting to be discovered. If you would like to continue this journey together, I hope to see you again in the next story from Thailand Through Eyes. And if there is somewhere in Thailand you wish to visit through story, leave your suggestion below. Perhaps our next journey will begin there.